I stood in that courthouse bathroom staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror and couldn't recognize the woman looking back at me. My hands gripped the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles went pale beneath my brown skin. The cream-colored dress my daughter Keisha picked out felt like a costume, and the small bouquet of roses sitting on the counter beside me might as well have been funeral flowers. In 3 minutes, I was supposed to walk out there and marry a man I'd known for 6 weeks. A man my own children had pushed me toward like I was cattle being led to market. A man who, at that very moment, was coughing so hard in the hallway I could hear it through the bathroom door. But none of that was why my heart was hammering in my chest. No. What had me frozen in that bathroom was the text message I'd just received from a number I didn't recognize. Stop the wedding. Reginald Hartwell is still married to me. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. My name is Vivian Clark. I'm 68 years old, and I never thought I'd be standing in a courthouse at my age, about to become somebody's wife for the second time. My first husband, Raymond, passed 12 years ago after 43 years of marriage. Good years mostly, hard years definitely. We raised 2 children in a 3-bedroom house in southwest Atlanta, both of us working double shifts to make sure Terrell and Keisha had everything they needed. Raymond drove a bus for Marta for 30 years. I worked as a nursing assistant at Grady Hospital, then picked up evening shifts cleaning offices downtown. We were tired all the time, but we were building something, a life, a legacy, or so I thought. After Raymond died, I was okay financially. Not rich, but okay. I had his pension, my Social Security, and the house was paid off. I had my garden, my church, my best friend Geneva who lived 2 streets over, and my grandchildren who used to visit every weekend. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I was content. But my children, Terrell especially, they had other ideas about what my life should look like. Mama, you can't just sit in that house forever, Terrell had said to me about 3 months ago. We were sitting in my living room, the same living room where I'd rocked him as a baby, where I'd helped him with homework, where I'd cried when he graduated college. He was my firstborn, my son, and I'd always been so proud of him. He worked in real estate, wore expensive suits, drove a Mercedes. On the outside, he looked like success. But I'd been noticing things. The way he'd swing by my house and ask to borrow money. The way his eyes would linger on my jewelry box, on Raymond's watch collection, on the antique furniture my grandmother had passed down to me. I'm not just sitting, baby. I'm living, I told him that day. I'm happy. But you could be happier, more secure. He leaned forward, his voice dropping into that tone he used when he was trying to sell something. I met someone I want you to meet. His name is Reginald Hartwell. He's a good man, successful businessman, recently widowed. He's looking for companionship. You're looking for companionship. I'm not looking for anything, I said firmly. That's when Keisha chimed in. My daughter, my baby girl, sitting on the other side of me holding my hand like she cared. Mama, we're just worried about you. What if something happens? What if you get sick? What if you fall? You need someone here with you. I have Geneva, I have the church, I have you 2. Terrell and Keisha exchanged a look. I caught it, that silent conversation between siblings that excluded me. That should have been my first warning. Just meet him, Keisha pressed. One dinner. If you don't like him, we'll never bring it up again. I should have said no. Lord, I should have said no. But they were my children, and somewhere deep in my heart, I still believed they wanted what was best for me. So I said yes to one dinner. Reginald Hartwell was 72 years old, tall and distinguished-looking despite the obvious illness that made his hands shake and his breathing labored. He had money, that much was clear from his tailored suit and the way he paid for dinner at one of Atlanta's finest restaurants without even glancing at the check. He was polite, well-spoken, and lonely. I could see the loneliness in his eyes, the same kind I sometimes saw in my own mirror. My wife passed 2 years ago, he told me over dessert. Cancer. I took care of her until the very end. These last 2 years, this house has been so quiet. Too quiet. I understood that. I told him about Raymond, about my life, about my children and grandchildren. It was a pleasant evening. Nothing more, nothing less. I went home thinking that would be the end of it. But Terrell called the next day. He really liked you, Mama. He wants to see you again. Terrell, I'm not interested in dating. It's not dating. It's companionship. He's sick, Mama. He's got a heart condition, maybe a year or two left. He just doesn't want to spend it alone. And think about what it could mean for you, for us, for the grandkids' college funds. There it was, the truth sliding out like a snake from under a rock. This wasn't about my happiness. This was about money. Boy, you want me to marry a dying man for his money? My voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I want you to be practical. You think that pension is going to last forever? You think that house won't need a new roof soon? Medical bills are going to pile up as you get older, Mama. This is smart. This is security. I hung up on him. I actually hung up on my own son, but he didn't give up. Neither did Keisha. They tag-teamed me for weeks. Terrell with the practical arguments, Keisha with the emotional manipulation. Don't you want to help your grandchildren? Don't you want to make sure we're taken care of after you're gone? As if I hadn't spent my entire life taking care of them already. And Reginald, he kept calling, kept sending flowers, kept showing up at my church on Sundays. He was kind, I'll give him that. Gentle. He never pressured me the way my children did. Maybe that's why I eventually said yes. Not to marriage at first, just to seeing him regularly. We'd have lunch. We'd watch TV at his sprawling house in Buckhead. He'd tell me about his business, his investments, his properties. And yes, he'd talk about his will, about how he wanted to make sure whoever he spent his final days with would be taken care of. I won't lie and say the money didn't matter. Of course it mattered. I was tired of worrying about every dollar, tired of telling my grandchildren I couldn't afford to take them places, tired of watching my friends travel while I counted pennies. Maybe Terrell was right. Maybe this was practical. Reginald needed a companion. I could use the security. And when he passed, I'd be able to help my family the way I'd always wanted to. So when he proposed 6 weeks after we met, I said yes. And I ignored the small voice in my head that said this was all happening too fast. The wedding was scheduled quickly. No point in waiting at my age, Reginald had said with a weak smile. The doctors say my heart could go any day. I want to spend whatever time I have left with you as my wife. Terrell and Keisha were thrilled. Too thrilled. They helped plan everything, rushed everything along, pushed me forward like I was on a conveyor belt, and they were terrified I'd jump off before reaching the end. Now here I was, in this courthouse bathroom, staring at a text message that said my future husband was already married. My hands shook as I read it again. Then I noticed there was a photo attached. I clicked it. A wedding photo. Reginald, looking maybe 10 years younger, standing next to a beautiful woman in a white dress. The date stamp on the photo, 15 years ago. The location, Charleston, South Carolina. My stomach dropped. I gripped the phone tighter, and another message came through. My name is Francine Hartwell. I've been trying to reach Reginald for months. He emptied our joint accounts and disappeared. If you marry him today, you're marrying a fraud and a thief. The bathroom door swung open and Keisha rushed in, her face tight with impatience. Mama, what are you doing? They're waiting. Reginald's asking for you. I turned to face her, holding up my phone. Did you know about this? She barely glanced at the screen. Know about what? Mama, come on. We don't have time for this. Your future stepfather is already married, Keisha. He's got a whole wife in South Carolina. For just a second, barely a heartbeat, something flickered across her face. Not surprise, something else. Something that made my blood run cold. Let me see that, She snatched the phone from my hand, read the messages, looked at the photo. Then she handed it back to me with a shrug. So what? So what? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man is committing bigamy. The man is dying, Mama. Who cares if he's got some old marriage license somewhere? You marry him today, you're his wife when he dies. That's what matters. That's what the lawyer said. What lawyer? Keisha, what are you talking about? She realized her mistake immediately. Her eyes went wide and she tried to backtrack. I just meant, legally, if you're married when he passes. You talked to a lawyer about this? Before I even agreed to marry him? My voice was rising, echoing off the bathroom tiles. How long have you known? The door opened again and Terrell stepped in, his expensive suit looking out of place in the dingy courthouse bathroom. What's going on? We can hear you in the hallway. Tell her, I demanded, pointing at Keisha. Tell me what you know about Reginald's other wife. Terrell's jaw tightened. He looked at Keisha, then back at me, and I watched my son make a calculation. I could see it happening behind his eyes. Should he lie? Should he tell the truth? Should he try to smooth this over? He chose wrong. We know, Mama. We've known for a few weeks, but it doesn't matter. She can't prove anything. Reginald said she's just trying to get money, that they've been separated for years, that the marriage wasn't even legal in the first place. It's messy, but it's not your problem. You just need to marry him today, and then... And then what, Terrell? I stepped closer to him, this man I'd raised, this man I'd sacrificed everything for. And then I commit a crime? And then I help you steal from whoever that woman is? Is that the plan? It's not stealing. Reginald wants you to have it. He told us himself he wants to leave everything to his new wife. You. He's got properties worth millions, Mama. Millions. Investment accounts, stocks, the house in Buckhead is worth $3 million alone. You marry him, you're set, we're set. The grandkids are set. We. I repeated the word slowly. So this is about you. About what you get when I become a rich widow. It's about family, Keisha jumped in. It's about taking care of each other. Isn't that what you always taught us? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. I taught you right from wrong. I taught you to work hard for what you want. I taught you integrity. You taught us to survive, Terrell shot back. You and Daddy, working yourselves to death for pennies. You think we want to end up like that? You think we want to struggle the way you did? This is our chance, Mama. Our one chance to get ahead. And all you have to do is sign a paper and play house with an old man for a few months until his heart gives out. The cruelty of it, the cold calculation, it hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, catching myself on the sink. Get out, I whispered. Mama, get out, both of you. They didn't move fast enough, so I screamed it. Get out! They left, Terrell muttering curses, Keisha crying fake tears. The door swung shut behind them, and I was alone again with my reflection and my phone and the truth sitting heavy in my chest like a stone. I should have walked out of that courthouse. I should have gone home, called Geneva, had her pick me up and never looked back. But I didn't. Because something else occurred to me as I stood there. Something that made me pick up my bouquet, straighten my dress, and walk out of that bathroom with my head held high. If Reginald Hartwell was running a con, if my children were in on it, if there was money and property and accounts worth millions on the line, then maybe I needed to be in the middle of it all to protect myself. Maybe I needed to become Mrs. Reginald Hartwell to find out exactly what I was dealing with. Maybe I needed to play this game better than they were playing it. I walked down that courthouse hallway and into the small room where Reginald waited, looking pale and worried. The judge was there, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes. Terrell and Keisha stood to the side, watching me with barely concealed anxiety. I'm ready, I said. Relief flooded Reginald's face. The ceremony took less than 5 minutes. I signed my name on the marriage license, Vivian Clark Hartwell, and just like that, I was married to a stranger. We went back to Reginald's house after, just the two of us. He was exhausted from the short ceremony, his breathing labored. I helped him to his bedroom, got him settled, and he fell asleep almost immediately. I stood there looking at this man who was now my husband, this man who had lied to me, who was using me just as much as my children were, and I felt nothing but cold determination. I started searching the house, quietly, carefully, going through his office while he slept. I found files, documents, bank statements. I found the deed to the Buckhead house, worth exactly what Terrell had said. I found investment portfolios, property deeds in 3 different states, and a safe I couldn't open. And then I found the photographs. Tucked in the bottom drawer of his desk, hidden under old tax returns. Photos of Reginald with the woman from the text message, Francine. Photos spanning years. Photos of them with children, teenagers, young adults. A whole family. A whole life he'd left behind. I was sitting at his desk, staring at those photos, when I heard the front door open downstairs. Footsteps on the marble floor. A woman's voice calling out, "Reginald? Reginald, I know you're here. Your car is in the driveway." I stood up, my heart pounding, and walked to the top of the stairs. A woman stood in the foyer, 50-something, elegant, angry. She looked up and saw me. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I'm Vivian Hartwell," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Reginald's wife. Who are you?" Her face went white, then red. "I'm Francine Hartwell, Reginald's wife, and I'm here to get back everything he stole from me." We stood there, 2 Mrs. Hartwells, staring at each other across an impossible situation. And then I heard it. A sound from the bedroom behind me. Not Reginald's labored breathing, something else. A phone ringing. And then a voice I recognized answering it. Terrell's voice, coming from Reginald's bedroom, where Reginald was supposed to be sleeping alone. I turned and walked back down the hallway, pushed open the bedroom door, and found my son standing over my husband's bed, holding a pillow in his hands, and Reginald lying still, too still, his eyes closed, his chest not moving. "Mama," Terrell said, seeing me in the doorway, "it's not what it looks like." But we both knew exactly what it looked like. "Step away from him!" I rushed into the bedroom, my voice coming out in a strangled scream. Terrell dropped the pillow like it had burned him, his hands flying up in surrender. But I was already at Reginald's bedside, my nursing training kicking in even as my mind reeled. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. His skin was warm. And there, faint but steady, I felt it. A heartbeat. "He's alive," I breathed out. "He's alive, Terrell. What did you do?" "Nothing. I didn't do anything." My son backed away from the bed, his expensive suit jacket hanging open, his face slick with sweat. "I came to check on him, and he was already like this. I was trying to help. I was adjusting his pillow." "With both hands? Standing over him like that?" I stared at the man I'd raised, looking for some trace of the boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who used to kiss my cheek and call me his best girl. All I saw was a stranger wearing my son's face. "Get out. Get out right now before I call the police." "Mama, you have to listen to me." "Get out!" Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs and Francine burst into the room, her eyes taking in the scene. Me at the bedside, Terrell backing toward the door, Reginald unconscious between us. "What's happening? What did you do to him?" "I didn't do anything," Terrell shouted, then pushed past her and ran. I heard his footsteps hammering down the stairs, heard the front door slam, heard his Mercedes engine roar to life in the driveway. Francine pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911. "Wait." I held up my hand, my mind racing. If we called 911, there would be questions. Police, investigations. And I was the new wife, the woman who'd married Reginald just hours ago. The woman who stood to inherit millions if he died. How would that look? Give me a second. Let me think. Think? Your son was trying to kill my husband. Your husband? The absurdity of it hit me, and I almost laughed. He's my husband, according to the state of Georgia. We signed the papers 4 hours ago. That marriage is fraudulent, and you know it. Francine moved closer, her phone still in her hand, but not dialing yet. I've been married to Reginald for 15 years. I have the license. I have the tax returns. I have a son in college and a daughter in medical school who he hasn't spoken to in 8 months, not since he cleaned out our accounts and vanished. He told me he was a widower. He tells everyone that. It's part of his pattern. She looked down at Reginald with something between love and hatred. This is what he does. He finds vulnerable women, marries them, gets access to their assets, then disappears. Or they disappear. A chill ran through me. What do you mean they disappear? Francine met my eyes. There was a woman in Memphis, Margaret Chen, married Reginald 3 years ago. She was a widow, had a life insurance payout, owned her home free and clear. 6 months after the wedding, she died. Heart attack, the doctors said. Reginald collected everything and moved on. You think he killed her? I think she's dead and he's not, and he's richer for it. Francine's voice was hard. Then there was a woman in Birmingham, Dorothy Hayes. Same story. Older, wealthy, lonely. Married Reginald. 8 months later, she fell down the stairs in her own home. Broke her neck. Reginald inherited everything. My legs felt weak. I sat down hard in the chair beside the bed. How do you know all this? Because I hired a private investigator when Reginald disappeared. Because I've been tracking him for months. Because I found the other wives, the other women, the trail of bodies and bank accounts and property deeds that follow my husband wherever he goes. She knelt down beside me, her voice urgent. And now I've found you. And unless we do something right now, you're going to end up just like the others. But he's sick. His heart is fine. Or it was last year when he had his physical. I have the medical records. He's not dying, Vivian. That's part of the con. He plays the sick, lonely old man looking for comfort in his final days. Women feel sorry for him. They marry him out of kindness, out of pity. And then they die. I looked down at Reginald, this man who was my husband, this man who'd seemed so gentle and sad and harmless. If that's true, why isn't he in jail? Because he's smart. Because he has help. Because there's never quite enough evidence to prove murder. Heart attacks happen. Old people fall downstairs. And Reginald is always somewhere else when it happens. Always has an alibi. Always walks away clean. Francine grabbed my hand. But maybe this time we can stop him. Maybe with both of us working together. Reginald's eyes opened. We both jumped back, gasping. He looked at us, confused at first. Then I watched awareness creep back into his face. His gaze moved from Francine to me and back again, and something cold and calculating flickered in those eyes that had seemed so kind at dinner 6 weeks ago. Well, he said, his voice much stronger than it had been all day. This is awkward. You're awake. I couldn't keep the accusation out of my voice. You were faking. Resting my eyes. He sat up slowly, and I noticed his hands weren't shaking anymore. His breathing was steady. Long day. Getting married takes it out of a man. He looked at Francine. Hello, Franny. It's been a while. 8 months, Reginald, since you emptied our accounts and disappeared. Our accounts? He smiled. And it wasn't a kind smile anymore. Check the paperwork, darling. Those accounts were in my name. What's mine is mine. What was yours became mine when you signed those papers I put in front of you. You really should read things more carefully. You forged my signature on half of them. Prove it. He swung his legs out of bed, stood up, stretched like a man without a care in the world. Now, I'd like you to leave my house. You're trespassing. This is my house, Francine's voice rose. I paid for this house with my inheritance from my mother. And you put it in my name for tax purposes, remember? On the advice of our financial advisor? Reginald walked to his closet, pulled out a robe. Everything was legal, Francine. You made bad decisions. That's not my fault. I watched this performance, my stomach turning. This wasn't a sick old man. This was a predator, and I'd walked right into his trap. What about me? I asked quietly. What's your plan for me, Reginald? He turned, and for just a moment, I saw something like respect in his eyes. You're smarter than the others. I knew that from the start. That's why I had to move faster than usual. Your children helped with that. He sat down on the edge of the bed, looking at me. Here's what's going to happen, Vivian. You're going to go home to your little house in southwest Atlanta. You're going to tell people the marriage didn't work out, that we're getting it annulled. You're going to sign some papers my lawyer brings you, and then you're going to forget you ever met me. And if I don't? Then things get complicated. See, you married me knowing I was already married. That's a crime. And your son was in my bedroom holding a pillow over my face. That's attempted murder. I have cameras, Vivian, all over this house. I have footage of Terrell sneaking in here, standing over me, pillow in hand. One phone call to the police and your boy goes to prison for 20 years. The trap closed around me. I felt it like a physical thing, like walls pressing in from all sides. You set him up. I gave him an opportunity, and he took it. Not my fault he's greedy and stupid. Reginald stood again, tightening the belt on his robe. Your kids came to me, by the way, not the other way around. Terrell found me through a business associate, heard I was looking for a wife, thought he could get in on the action. He brought you to me on a silver platter, some son you raised. I wanted to hit him. My hands clenched into fists, and I actually stood up, ready to strike. Francine grabbed my arm. Don't. That's what he wants. Cameras, remember? Reginald smiled. Listen to Francine. She's learned a lot in 15 years. He walked to the bedroom door, opened it. Now both of you get out of my house. And Vivian, expect those papers tomorrow. Sign them. Forget about me. Or your son pays the price. I wanted to argue, wanted to fight. But what could I say? He had me cornered. He had cameras, evidence, leverage. He had everything. Francine and I walked out of that house together, two women who'd been conned by the same man. We stood in the driveway, the late afternoon sun beating down, and looked at each other. What do we do now? I asked. I don't know. Francine's shoulders slumped. I've been trying to figure that out for 8 months. He's always one step ahead. He has lawyers, accountants, people who help him do this. I can't prove the forgeries. Can't prove the coercion. Can't prove anything. Who are these people? Who helps him? I only know one name. His lawyer. Man named Calvin Briggs, office downtown. He's the one who draws up all the paperwork, makes everything look legal. He's been working with Reginald for years, helping him do this to women all over the South. Calvin Briggs. I repeated the name in my head. We need evidence. Real evidence. How? We can't get into his office. We can't... Francine stopped, looking at me. Wait. You're still legally married to him. You're his wife. You might have access to things I don't. He's going to have the marriage annulled. Not if you fight it. Not if you drag it out. Use the legal system against him for once. Francine grabbed my hands. Vivian, you might be our only chance. You're inside in a way I'm not anymore. If you can find evidence, if you can prove what he's doing, I have a life to get back to, a family to protect. Even as I said it, I thought about Terrell standing over Reginald with that pillow. My family. What was left of it? And how many more women does he hurt while you protect a son who was willing to commit murder for money? Francine's voice was sharp. How many more Dorothy Hayes? How many more Margaret Chens? How many more until someone stops him? She was right. I knew she was right. But I was tired. Bone tired. This morning I'd woken up as a widow planning to marry for security. Now I was caught in a web of fraud and attempted murder and dead women stretching back years. My phone buzzed. A text from Keisha. Mama, where are you? Terrell said something went wrong. Call me. I stared at the message. My daughter. My baby girl. How deep was she in this? How much did she know? I need to go home, I said to Francine. I need to think. Don't take too long. Men like Reginald, they don't wait around. He'll move against you if he thinks you're a threat. Francine pulled out her phone. Give me your number. We should stay in contact. We exchanged numbers and I got in my car, drove back to my house in southwest Atlanta, my mind spinning the whole way. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Terrell's Mercedes parked on the street. He was sitting on my front porch, his head in his hands. I got out of the car slowly, every muscle tense. What are you doing here? He looked up and I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I messed up. I messed up so bad. You tried to kill him. No, I wasn't. I didn't. He stood up, hands shaking. Okay, maybe I thought about it. Maybe I was holding the pillow and I thought, if he just stopped breathing, this would all be over and we'd be rich and nobody would know. But I didn't do it, Mama. I swear I didn't. I couldn't. But you wanted to. You stood over a sleeping man and thought about murdering him. He's not who we thought he was. Terrell was crying now, tears streaming down his face. Mama, he's dangerous. He has files on us. On you, on me, on Keisha. He knows everything. Bank accounts, debts, secrets. He's been planning this whole thing and we walked right into it. We? Or you? You're the one who found him, Terrell. You're the one who brought this man into my life. I thought it was easy money. I thought he was just some lonely old man and we could... He stopped, seeing my face. Could what? Take advantage of him? Steal from him? Wait for him to die and cash in? Yes. The word burst out of him. Yes, okay? I'm broke, Mama. I'm so broke. The real estate business collapsed. I owe money to people, bad people. I needed a way out, and Reginald seemed like the answer. His business partner approached me, said Reginald was looking for a wife, said there'd be money in it for the family who helped make it happen. I thought I was playing him, but he was playing all of us. Business partner? What business partner? Calvin Briggs, his lawyer. He's the one who set the whole thing up, who found me, who offered me money to bring you in. Terrell wiped his face. Mama, we're in trouble. Real trouble. Reginald has those videos of me. If he goes to the police, he won't. Not yet. He wants me to sign annulment papers, wants this all to go away quietly. Then sign them. Sign whatever he wants and let's just get away from this. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised to be better than this, and felt something break inside me. No. What? I said no. I'm not signing anything. I'm not running away. I'm going to find out exactly what Reginald Hartwell and Calvin Briggs have been doing, and I'm going to stop them. Mama, you can't. They'll destroy you. They'll destroy all of us. They already have, baby. Don't you see that? They've already destroyed what we were. I walked past him to my front door, unlocked it. Go home. Terrell, go home to your wife and your kids and try to figure out how you became the kind of man who'd murder for money. Mama! Go! He left, and I went inside my house, locked the door behind me, and stood in my living room surrounded by 40 years of memories. Pictures of my children on the walls, Raymond's chair in the corner, my grandmother's china cabinet, my life, my real life. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it warily. Hello? Mrs. Hartwell? A man's voice. smooth and professional. "This is Calvin Briggs. I'm Reginald's attorney. I have papers for you to sign. I can be at your home in 1 hour." "How do you have my number?" "I have everything, Mrs. Hartwell. Your number, your address, your social security number, your banking information, your children's information. Everything. That's my job. Now, I'll be there in 1 hour. I suggest you be ready to sign, otherwise things could get very unpleasant for you and your family, especially for Terrell." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding the phone, feeling the walls close in tighter. They weren't waiting. They were moving right now, pressing their advantage, trying to scare me into submission. I called Francine back. "That lawyer, Calvin Briggs, he's coming here in an hour with papers. What do I do?" "Don't sign anything, and don't meet with him alone. You need a witness. Wait, I know someone. A detective who's been looking into Reginald. I can call him, see if he can get there." "A detective?" "He investigated the Dorothy Hayes death. He thinks it was murder but could never prove it. His name is Rashad Turner. He works cold cases for Atlanta PD. If I can get him there, will you talk to him?" Yes, send him, please." 45 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a black man in his 40s, wearing a blazer and jeans, holding up a badge. I opened the door. "Mrs. Clark? Or is it Mrs. Hartwell now?" He had a kind face but tired eyes. "I'm Detective Rashad Turner. Francine Hartwell called me. She said you might be in trouble." "That's an understatement. Come in, please." He stepped inside just as another car pulled up outside. A sleek black BMW. Calvin Briggs, I assumed. I watched through the window as a white man in an expensive suit got out, carrying a briefcase. "That him?" Detective Turner asked. "That's the lawyer." "Good. Let's see what he has to say. And Mrs. Hartwell, don't sign anything. No matter what he threatens." Calvin Briggs knocked on my door, and when I opened it, his smile faltered, seeing the detective standing beside me. "Mrs. Hartwell, I see you have company. This is a private legal matter. This is my house. Everyone here is my guest. Come in or don't, Mr. Briggs, but if you want me to look at papers, you'll do it with witnesses present." His smile hardened into something uglier. "Very well." He came inside, set his briefcase on my coffee table, opened it with precise movements. "These are annulment papers. Sign them, and the marriage between you and Reginald Hartwell will be voided as if it never happened. You'll receive a small settlement, $20,000 for your trouble, and we'll all part ways peacefully. And if I don't sign? Then we pursue legal action against your son for attempted murder. We have video evidence of Terrell in Reginald's bedroom, holding a pillow, standing over him while he slept. We have testimony. We have—" "You have a scam," Detective Turner interrupted. "You and Reginald Hartwell have been running this con for years. I know about Dorothy Hayes. I know about Margaret Chen. I know about at least 4 other women who married your client and died suspiciously within a year." Calvin Briggs barely blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about, Detective. My client is a widower looking for companionship. If some of his previous marriages ended in tragedy, that's unfortunate but hardly criminal." "Previous marriages? So he admits to bigamy?" "I admit to nothing." "Reginald's marriage to Francine ended years ago. They're separated." "Not legally divorced, though," I said. "Which means when he married me today, he committed bigamy. Which means this marriage is already void, which means I don't need to sign anything." Calvin's eyes narrowed. "You're going to be difficult about this." "I'm going to be smart about this." He closed his briefcase with a snap. "Then let me be clear, Mrs. Hartwell. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Reginald has resources, connections, friends in very high places. If you try to fight this, you'll lose everything. Your house, your pension, your grandchildren's futures, and your son will rot in prison. Is that really what you want?" "I want the truth. About Dorothy Hayes, about Margaret Chen, about all the women your client has hurt." "Then you'll be disappointed. Because there is no truth to find. Just accidents. Just tragedies. Just life insurance payouts and inheritance laws doing what they're designed to do. He walked to the door, paused. You have 24 hours to sign those papers, Mrs. Hartwell. After that, things get serious. He left, and I collapsed onto my couch, shaking. Detective Turner sat down beside me. You did good. You didn't let him bully you. But he's right, isn't he? They have all the power, all the evidence against Terrell, all the lawyers and money and connections. Maybe, but you have something they don't. He pulled out a card, handed it to me. You have the truth on your side, and you have me. I've been trying to nail Reginald Hartwell for 2 years. If you're willing to help, if you're willing to be brave for just a little longer, maybe we can finally get him. I looked at the card. Detective Rashad Turner, Cold Case Division. What do you need me to do? Stay married to him. Fight the annulment. Use your legal rights as his wife to access his records, his accounts, his property. Find what I couldn't find. Find proof. They'll come after my son. They will. But if we do this right, if we gather enough evidence, we can get immunity for Terrell in exchange for his testimony. He turns on them, tells us everything he knows about how they recruited him, and he walks away. It was a long shot, a dangerous long shot. But what choice did I have? Okay, I said. I'll do it. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You made a mistake today, Vivian. Sleep well while you can. And then another text, this one with a photo attached. I opened it and felt my blood turn to ice. It was a picture of my granddaughter, sweet little Amara, Keisha's youngest. She was at school, playing on the playground, unaware someone was photographing her. The next text came through. Beautiful children. It would be a shame if anything happened to them. Detective Turner saw my face, saw the phone. What is it? I showed him and watched his expression go dark. They're threatening your grandchildren now. It wasn't a question. I nodded, unable to speak. This had gone beyond money, beyond fraud, beyond anything I'd imagined. These people were threatening babies. Vivian, listen to me. Turner gripped my shoulders. We can protect them. I can get officers assigned to the schools, to Keisha's house, but you have to trust me. How can you protect them from people like this? People who've gotten away with murder? People who... The front door crashed open and Keisha burst in, wild-eyed and furious. You couldn't just sign the papers? You couldn't just do the smart thing? Now they're threatening my children, my babies, Mama. Keisha, I didn't... This is your fault, all of it. You and your pride and your righteousness. She was screaming now, crying. Just sign the damn papers. Give them what they want. Let it go. If I give them what they want, they win. They'll do this to someone else's mother, someone else's family. I don't care about someone else. I care about my children. She grabbed the annulment papers from where Calvin Briggs had left them on the coffee table, shoved them at me with a pen. Sign them. Right now. Or I swear to God, Mama, I will never forgive you. I looked at my daughter, my baby girl, seeing the fear and rage and desperation in her eyes. I looked at Detective Turner, who was watching me with quiet intensity. I looked at the papers in my hands, the easy way out, the path that would keep my grandchildren safe and let the monsters win. And then my phone rang again. Francine. Vivian, don't sign anything. I found something. I found another woman. She's alive. Her name is Patricia Monroe, and she lives in Savannah, and Reginald married her 4 years ago, and she survived. She got away from him, and she has evidence. Real evidence. Documents, recordings, everything. She's been building a case, and she's ready to testify if we can get to her before Reginald finds out she's talking. I looked up at Detective Turner. There's another victim, in Savannah. She has evidence. His eyes lit up. Then we go to Savannah. Tonight. Right now. Mama, no! Keisha grabbed my arm. Please! But I was already standing, already moving toward my bedroom to pack a bag. Because I'd just realized something. These people, Reginald and Calvin and whoever else was helping them, they'd made one critical mistake. They'd threatened my grandchildren. And if there was one thing I'd learned in 68 years on this earth, it was this. You don't threaten a grandmother's babies and expect her to roll over. You threaten my grandchildren, and I become the most dangerous person you've ever met. Detective Turner drove while I sat in the passenger seat, watching Atlanta disappear in the rearview mirror. Keisha had left my house in tears, screaming that I was choosing strangers over my own family. Terrell hadn't answered any of my calls, and every few minutes, my phone would buzz with another threatening message. Pictures of my grandchildren, pictures of my house, pictures that said, "We're watching, we know where you are, you can't hide." "They're trying to break you," Turner said, his eyes on the dark highway ahead. "That's what bullies do. They push and push until you crumble." What if I'm not strong enough? My voice came out small, tired. I felt every one of my 68 years pressing down on my shoulders. What if I'm making this worse for everyone? "Then we turn around right now. I'll take you home. You sign the papers. We all walk away, and Reginald Hartwell keeps destroying lives." He glanced at me. "Is that what you want?" "No." I straightened in my seat. "No, it's not." "Then tell me about your husband." "About Raymond." The question surprised me. "Why?" "Because you loved him. I can see it in your house, in the way you talk about him, and I'm betting Raymond wouldn't want you to give up. Am I right?" I smiled despite everything. Raymond used to say the only thing worse than doing the wrong thing was knowing the right thing and not doing it. He'd drive me crazy with that saying. Whenever I wanted to avoid conflict, wanted to just let things slide, he'd look at me with those eyes and say, "Viv, you know the right thing." Smart man. He was. Stubborn, too. Drove a bus for 30 years, dealt with every kind of person you can imagine, and never once let anyone push him around, even when it would have been easier to just keep quiet. I looked out at the darkness rushing past. He'd be ashamed of what our children have become. Or he'd understand that you did your best and sometimes kids make their own choices. Turner's phone rang and he put it on speaker. "Turner here. Detective, it's Francine. I'm with Patricia Monroe right now. You need to get here fast. What she's telling me, it's worse than we thought. So much worse." "We're 2 hours out. What's going on?" "Reginald didn't just scam these women. Patricia's voice came on the line, shaky but determined. "He killed his first wife, his real wife, 20 years ago. And I can prove it." The car swerved slightly as Turner's hands jerked on the wheel. "Say that again?" "His first wife, Catherine Hartwell, died in a house fire in 1998. Everyone thought it was an accident, but I found insurance documents, emails, a whole plan. Reginald burned down his own house with her inside to collect the insurance money. That's how this all started. That's how he learned he could get away with it." I felt sick. "Oh, God." "There's more," Patricia continued. "Calvin Briggs was his insurance agent back then. He's the one who processed the claim, who helped make it look legitimate. They've been partners ever since. Calvin finds the women, sets up the cons, handles all the legal work. Reginald plays the sick, lonely husband. They split everything 50-50. How do you know all this?" Turner was driving faster now, the speedometer climbing. "Because I didn't just escape. I made Reginald think I died. Faked my death in a car accident 4 years ago. Had a friend who's a mortician help me. I've been watching them ever since, gathering evidence, building a case. I was waiting for the right moment, the right person who could help me take them down." Her voice strengthened. "And then Francine found me and told me about you, Vivian. About how you refused to run. About how you're standing up to them. I knew it was time." 2 hours later, we pulled up to a small house in a quiet Savannah neighborhood. Francine met us at the door, and behind her stood a woman in her 60s, gray hair, sharp eyes, very much alive despite supposedly dying 4 years ago. "I'm Patricia Monroe," she said, shaking my hand. "Or I was Patricia Hartwell for 8 terrible months. Come in, we have work to do." Her dining room table was covered in documents: bank statements, insurance policies, emails printed and highlighted, photographs, death certificates. The evidence of a 20-year crime spree laid out like a roadmap of destruction. "Catherine Hartwell died on October 14, 1998, Patricia began, pointing to a death certificate. "House fire. Electrical malfunction," they said. "But look at this." She pulled out an insurance policy. Reginald had increased her life insurance just 3 months before, doubled it. And look who processed the increase. Calvin Briggs. Turner was taking pictures with his phone, documenting everything. He was working for Piedmont Insurance back then. He still has connections there. That's how they do it. Calvin identifies wealthy women, older women, lonely women. He passes the information to Reginald. Reginald sweeps in, plays Prince Charming, marries them. They get access to accounts, properties, assets. If the women figure it out and try to leave, they die. If they don't figure it out, they die anyway, eventually. Reginald collects. Calvin handles the legal side and makes sure nothing looks suspicious, and they move on to the next victim. "How many?" I asked. "How many women?" Patricia's face was grim. "That I can prove. 11, including Catherine. But I think there are more. Women who died of natural causes that were never investigated. Women whose families were too grief-stricken to ask questions. Women who just disappeared from the record." 11 women dead. Francine's voice broke. "And I almost became number 12. "We all almost did." Patricia looked at me. "You still could be, Vivian, if we don't move fast. They're threatened now. You're not signing their papers. You've got a detective involved. You're asking questions. That makes you dangerous. And they eliminate dangerous women." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We take this to the police? To the FBI?" "We take it to the media first," Patricia said. "We make it public. We make it so big that they can't make you disappear quietly. And then we take it to every law enforcement agency we can find." She pulled out her phone. "I have a contact at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, reporter who's been investigating insurance fraud. She's been waiting for something this big. I can have her in Atlanta tomorrow morning." Turner nodded. "And I can take this to my captain tonight. Get a warrant started for both Reginald and Calvin. With this evidence, we can freeze their accounts, search their properties, bring them in for questioning." "They'll lawyer up," Francine warned. "They'll have explanations for everything." "Maybe. But they won't have explanations for all of it. And while they're busy defending themselves, we'll keep digging. Find the other victims. Build the case until it's airtight." Turner looked at me. "But Vivian has to be protected. If she's going to be the face of this, if she's going to testify—" "I'll testify," I said. "I'll do whatever it takes." Patricia smiled. "Then let's burn their lives down the same way Reginald burned down his house. Let's take everything from them." We worked through the night, organizing evidence, making copies, coordinating with Turner's captain and Patricia's reporter contact. By the time the sun came up, we had a plan. By noon the next day, we were executing it. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran the story on their website first. Local businessman suspected in 20-year murder scheme. The reporter, a sharp woman named Tasha Williams, had interviewed me, Patricia, and Francine. She'd seen the documents. She'd verified what she could through her own sources. And she'd written a story that went viral within hours. My phone exploded with calls. Friends from church, neighbors, people I hadn't talked to in years. And then my children. Keisha first. "Mama, what did you do? It's all over the news. They're saying Reginald is a murderer. They're saying you're going to testify." "It's all true, baby, every word." "But they threatened the kids. Mama, how could you—" "I called your school. I had Detective Turner arrange protection. There are officers there right now. Amara and Isaiah are safe. Safe? We'll never be safe. Reginald knows where we live. Calvin Briggs knows everything about us. They're not going to hurt anyone, not now. The whole city is watching. They can't make any of us disappear when there are news cameras involved. I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. Trust me, Keisha. For once, just trust that I'm doing the right thing. She hung up on me. 10 minutes later, Terrell called. They came to my house, Mama. The police. They want me to testify against Calvin Briggs. They said you arranged immunity for me. I did. You tell them everything you know about how Calvin recruited you, how he set this whole thing up, and you walk away clean. No charges. Silence on the other end. Then, I don't deserve this. After what I did, what I almost did, no, you don't deserve it. But you're my son, and I love you even when you're stupid and greedy and wrong. So you're going to take this chance, and you're going to do better. Understand? Yes. Ma'am. His voice was thick with tears. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, baby. Now go talk to those police officers. By evening, the story had made the local TV news. By the next morning, it was national. Cable news picked it up. Social media exploded. Women started coming forward, saying they'd dated Reginald, saying he'd scammed them but they'd gotten away. The FBI opened an investigation. The Georgia Attorney General's office got involved, and through it all, I prepared to face Reginald and Calvin in court. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Reginald was fighting the bigamy charges, claiming his marriage to Francine had been common law and was dissolved years ago. He was fighting the fraud charges, saying all his marriages had been legitimate and any deaths were tragic coincidences. Calvin Briggs had a team of lawyers arguing he'd done nothing wrong, that he was just an attorney serving his clients. But we had Patricia's evidence. We had Terrell's testimony about being recruited. We had the forensic accounting that showed the pattern of deaths and insurance payouts. We had enough to at least get them in front of a judge. The courthouse was packed. News cameras everywhere. My church family showed up, filling 3 rows, Pastor Williams leading them in prayer before we went inside. Geneva sat beside me, holding my hand. Francine sat on my other side. Patricia was there, very publicly alive, ready to testify. When Reginald walked in, he looked older than I'd ever seen him. The mask was gone. No more gentle, sick old man. Just a predator in handcuffs, glaring at me with pure hatred. Calvin Briggs came in separately. His expensive suit perfectly pressed, his expression confident. He still thought he'd win. I could see it in his eyes. The judge was a black woman in her 50s, Judge Henrietta Washington, with a reputation for not tolerating nonsense in her courtroom. She looked at the packed gallery, at the news cameras, at the stacks of evidence on both tables, and shook her head. This is a bail hearing for Mr. Reginald Hartwell and Mr. Calvin Briggs, both charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and suspicion of murder in connection with the deaths of 11 women over 20 years. Her voice carried through the courtroom. I've reviewed the initial evidence presented by the state. I've read the news reports. And I've read the statements from 3 women who claim to have been victims of these defendants' schemes. We're going to proceed carefully and thoroughly. Defense, your opening statement. Calvin's lawyer stood, a silver-haired man who spoke with practiced ease. Your Honor, this is a witch hunt. My clients are victims of coincidence being twisted into conspiracy. Mr. Hartwell is a businessman who has been married several times, yes. Some of those marriages ended in tragedy, yes. But tragedy is not crime. Coincidence is not conspiracy. The state has no physical evidence of murder. No witnesses to any crimes. Just a series of unfortunate events being strung together by women who are, frankly, bitter about failed relationships. Bitter? Francine stood up from the gallery. My husband stole everything I owned and disappeared. Ms. Hartwell, sit down. Judge Washington said firmly. "You'll have your chance to speak." The prosecutor, a young black man named Jordan Ellis, stood next. "Your Honor, the state has documented evidence of a 20-year pattern of fraud and suspected homicide. We have insurance documents showing Mr. Hartwell and Mr. Briggs working together to defraud insurance companies. We have testimony from family members who were recruited to help lure victims. We have forensic accounting that shows millions of dollars moving through shell companies operated by both defendants. And we have 3 living victims who can testify to the pattern and practice of these crimes." "Your Honor," Calvin's lawyer interrupted, "none of that proves murder. At best, it suggests some financial irregularities that can be explained." "Explained how?" Judge Washington looked at him. "Please, explain to me how 11 women, all married to the same man, all dying within a year of their weddings is coincidence." "Tragic coincidence, Your Honor. Mr. Hartwell has been unlucky in love." "Unlucky?" I stood up before I could stop myself. "He killed those women. He killed Catherine Hartwell in 1998, and he's been killing women ever since, and you helped him," I pointed at Calvin. "You processed the insurance on Catherine. You've been covering for him for 20 years. "Mrs. Hartwell, you're out of order." The judge's gavel came down. "Sit down now, or I'll have you removed." Pastor Williams pulled me back into my seat, but the outburst had done what I needed it to do. Every camera in the room had captured it. Every reporter was typing furiously. The story just got bigger. Judge Washington looked at both sides. "Here's what's going to happen. Bail is denied for both defendants. They will remain in custody while the investigation continues. The state has 30 days to bring formal charges or release them. In the meantime, all assets belonging to both defendants are frozen pending resolution of this case. Any properties, accounts, or holdings are not to be touched, transferred, or sold." Reginald's face went red. "You can't do that. I have businesses to run. You have the right to remain silent, Mr. Hartwell. I suggest you use it." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Vivian Hartwell, please approach." My legs felt weak, but I stood, walked to the front of the courtroom. "Yes, Your Honor." "You're currently married to Mr. Hartwell, is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. Though he was already married when he married me. So I'm not sure the marriage is legal." "Legally, you're correct. The marriage is void. However, until we sort out which of Mr. Hartwell's marriages were legal and which weren't, I'm appointing you as temporary administrator of his estate. You'll work with a court-appointed accountant to document all assets and ensure nothing disappears while this case proceeds." Calvin Briggs shot to his feet. "Your Honor, that's outrageous! She's not qualified. She has a conflict of interest. She's the most recent spouse. She has legal standing. And quite frankly, Mr. Briggs, she's the only person involved in this mess who seems to be telling the truth. My ruling stands." The gavel came down again. "We're adjourned. Defendants are remanded to custody." The courtroom erupted. Reginald was shouting, being led away by bailiffs. Calvin was conferring urgently with his lawyers. Reporters were shoving microphones at anyone who would talk, and I just stood there, stunned, as Judge Washington's words sank in. I was in charge of Reginald's estate, all those properties, all those accounts, all that money he'd stolen from women for 20 years. It was all under my control now. Outside the courthouse, Tasha Williams caught up with me. "Mrs. Hartwell, how does it feel to have control of the fortune your husband built on murder?" I looked directly at the camera. "It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the families of the women he killed, and I'm going to make sure every penny goes back to them." The story went national that night. By morning, it was international. Women from across the country were calling the tip line Detective Turner had set up, reporting encounters with Reginald, with Calvin, with other men who seemed to be running similar schemes. The FBI task force grew. Other states opened investigations. And I went to work. The court-appointed accountant, a quiet woman named Denise Park, helped me navigate Reginald's financial empire. It was staggering. Properties in 8 states. investment accounts worth millions, cash hidden in dozens of accounts. All of it built on stolen lives. We found Catherine Hartwell's family first. Her sister was still alive, living in Florida, had spent 20 years thinking her sister's death was an accident. When I called her, when I told her we had proof it was murder, she wept for an hour. When I told her I was going to make sure she got Catherine's life insurance money, the money Reginald had stolen, she couldn't speak at all. One by one, we tracked down the families. Dorothy Hayes's children, Margaret Chen's elderly mother, the relatives of 9 other women who'd died loving a man who'd never loved them back. Some of the families had suspected foul play but couldn't prove it. Others had never imagined. All of them deserved justice. The trial took 6 months to prepare. When it finally started, it lasted 3 weeks. Terrell testified about being recruited by Calvin. Patricia testified about faking her death and gathering evidence. Francine testified about the financial abuse. I testified about the bigamy, the threats, finding Terrell standing over Reginald with that pillow. The forensic accountant testified about the money trail. The insurance investigator testified about the suspicious patterns. A fire investigator testified about Catherine Hartwell's death, how the evidence had always suggested arson, but was never properly investigated. And then came the twist none of us expected. Calvin Briggs took the stand in his own defense, and he blamed everything on Reginald. "I was manipulated," Calvin said, his voice smooth and convincing. "Reginald Hartwell came to me 20 years ago with an insurance claim. It seemed legitimate. I processed it. I didn't know he'd killed his wife. Years later, he came back, asked me to help with some estate planning, said he was getting remarried. I had no reason to suspect anything wrong. Yes, I helped him with legal documents. Yes, I introduced him to potential partners. But I never knew about the murders, never knew about the pattern. I was a victim of his manipulation just like everyone else." The prosecutor tore into him on cross-examination, showing emails that proved Calvin knew exactly what was happening, that proved he'd helped plan several of the deaths, that proved he was an equal partner in everything. But Calvin had an answer for everything, had lawyers who'd coached him perfectly, had explanations that were just plausible enough to create reasonable doubt. I watched the jury and saw some of them believing him, saw them thinking maybe this smooth professional lawyer really had been fooled by a clever con man. Reginald's lawyer tried the same strategy in reverse, claiming Reginald had been manipulated by Calvin, that Calvin was the mastermind and Reginald was just a pawn. It was absurd. They were pointing fingers at each other, each trying to save himself by sacrificing his partner. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, I held my breath. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Catherine Hartwell, we find the defendant Reginald Hartwell guilty. The courtroom exhaled as one, but they weren't done. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Dorothy Hayes, we find the defendant Reginald Hartwell guilty. 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 Down the list of charges, 11 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, dozens of counts of fraud, theft, forgery. Reginald Hartwell was convicted on all of them. Then came Calvin Briggs's verdicts. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Catherine Hartwell, we find the defendant Calvin Briggs guilty. He'd been so confident, so sure his lawyers and his explanations would save him. The color drained from his face as the guilty verdicts piled up. Not all of them. The jury acquitted him on 3 of the murder conspiracies, apparently believing he really hadn't known about those. But they convicted him on 8 murders and all the fraud charges. Both men were sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Multiple life sentences running consecutively. They'd die in prison, both of them. As the bailiffs led them away, Reginald looked at me one last time. Not with hatred anymore, with something like respect. "You were tougher than the others," he said as he passed my seat. I underestimated you." "You underestimated all of us," I replied. "That was your mistake." 6 months after the trial ended, I stood in the living room of what had been Reginald's Buckhead mansion, now sold, the proceeds divided among the victims' families. The last check had been distributed that morning. Catherine's sister got her life insurance. Dorothy's children got theirs. Every family got back what had been stolen, plus interest, plus a portion of the properties and investments. There was money left over. Not much in the scheme of things, maybe $200,000 after everything was distributed and all legal fees were paid. Judge Washington gave me the discretion to decide where it should go. I donated it to a foundation that helped elderly women avoid financial scams. I named it the Catherine Hartwell Foundation, after the first victim, the woman whose murder had started it all. My phone rang. "Geneva." "You almost done there?" "Pastor Williams is holding dinner." "Almost. 5 more minutes." I walked through the empty house one last time, my footsteps echoing on marble floors. This house built with blood money. This monument to greed and murder. Soon it would belong to someone else, someone who'd fill it with love instead of lies. Outside, the Georgia sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Detective Turner was waiting by his car to give me a ride to the church. "How you feeling?" he asked as I got in. Tired, relieved, sad. I looked back at the mansion one last time. Angry that it took so long to stop them. Angry about the women we couldn't save. But you saved the ones who came after. Every woman who would have been Reginald's next victim, you saved them. That matters. At the church, my family was waiting. My real family. Geneva and her husband, Pastor Williams and half the congregation, Detective Turner's wife and kids. Patricia had flown in from Savannah. Francine had driven down from Charleston, where she'd moved back into her mother's old house, the one she'd inherited and Reginald had stolen and I'd helped her get back. And in the corner, looking uncomfortable but present, were Terrell and Keisha with their families. My son approached me first. "Mama, You're here. That's enough for now." I hugged him, felt him shake with silent sobs. "We'll work on the rest, day by day." Keisha was next, bringing Amara and Isaiah. The kids wanted to see their grandma, the grandma who protected them even when we were too scared to stand up. I knelt down, hugged my grandbabies, breathed in their innocence and their futures. This was why I'd fought. Not for money, not even for justice, really. For them. So they'd grow up in a world where grandmothers don't roll over when threatened, where women protect each other, where evil doesn't win just because it's powerful. Pastor Williams blessed the food and we ate together, the whole village that had surrounded me when I needed it most. We told stories, we laughed, we cried, we remembered the women who didn't make it and celebrated the ones who did. As I was leaving, Francine pulled me aside. "I'm writing a book about all of this, about Catherine and Dorothy and the others, about you. I want their stories told so they're not forgotten." "That's good. That's important. And I want you to write the foreword. Will you?" I thought about it. Thought about my name on a book about murder and fraud and betrayal. Thought about Raymond and what he'd say. Yes, I decided. I'll do it, because someone needs to tell the truth about what happened. And someone needs to warn other women that men like Reginald exist. 3 years later, I sat in my living room, my small, paid-off house in southwest Atlanta that I'd never sold, never left, reading Francine's finished book. 11 Wives, the true story of a serial killer who married his victims. My foreword was on page 5. The book was a bestseller. The story had never really left the public consciousness. It had changed laws, inspired investigations in other states, led to 3 other men being arrested for similar schemes. It had probably saved lives, though we'd never know how many. Terrell had gotten his life together mostly. Sold the Mercedes, took a job teaching real estate classes at the community college, paid back every penny he'd borrowed from me over the years. We had Sunday dinners sometimes. It was still awkward. But it was something. Keisha called me every day, brought the grandkids over twice a week. We didn't talk about those dark days unless we had to. We focused on moving forward. And me? I was 68 years old when this started. Now I was 71. I'd survived a con man, exposed a murder conspiracy, helped bring down 2 criminals, and returned millions to the families they'd stolen from. I'd also learned something about myself. I was tougher than I thought, braver than I believed, stronger than anyone, including me, had imagined. Geneva knocked on my door, let herself in with the key I'd given her. "You ready?" "Patricia's plane lands in an hour." Patricia visited twice a year now. We'd become friends, bonded by survival. She'd testified at 3 more trials, helping prosecute men who'd learned their schemes from reading about Reginald and thought they could do better. She was a warrior now, a crusader, using her pain to protect others. We were all warriors, all of us who'd survived. "I'm ready," I said, standing up from Raymond's old chair. I looked at his picture on the mantel, touched the frame gently. "I did the right thing, didn't I, baby?" I liked to think he'd answer yes. Liked to think he'd be proud of the woman I'd become in his absence. The woman who'd almost married a killer. The woman who'd found out the truth and fought back instead of running away. Outside, the Atlanta sun was shining. My garden needed weeding. My grandchildren were coming over tomorrow. Life, my real life, was waiting. And somewhere, in a prison in South Georgia, Reginald Hartwell and Calvin Briggs were spending their first of many days behind bars, their con finally over, their victims finally avenged. Justice, I'd learned, doesn't always come easy. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Sometimes you have to risk everything for it. Sometimes you have to be brave when every instinct screams at you to run. But when it comes, when justice finally arrives, it's worth every moment of fear, every sleepless night, every threat, and every tear. It's worth it because the truth matters, because the victims matter, because standing up matters, and because somewhere out there, a woman who might have been Reginald's next victim was living her life, safe and unaware of the danger she'd escaped. I'd saved her. We all had. Together. And that, more than anything, was worth fighting for. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and share your own experiences below. We're all in this together.